of course, I have to start with the most obvious question is, Steve, can you tell me what will happen into the biology in 2065? I haven't been there yet, so I'm actually a little bit behind. Actually, it's really hard to have a vision in 50 years. Actually, I'm more responsible. I'm not as bold as Steve. So what I did is actually how hard our task actually is. Go back to 1964. No internet. You haven't been to the moon yet. Google? What? No clue. Actually, the sense of writing a paper, and probably some of you did, actually was written by hand. I see so many faces saying, yes, we did. So the things changed dramatically. In 50 years, you have a very strong Antarctic treaty. Actually, you have a color TV. By then, you didn't. Actually, in 1964, Marta was 39 years old, which is how old I am now. But one important thing that I want to make across, it is very likely that science that we're going to do in 50 years will be far more different what we've done in the last 400 years. It's not just me saying that. So actually, I think technology and the science we're conducting science in future in the next 50 years will actually be dramatically different. Just look at how technology evolved in the last 15 years. And now we have a computer that is not attached to anything. You'll be talking to Alan and he's in the US. Could you imagine that 20 years ago? I don't think so. So I think we are living in an era that is actually quite exciting. And I have to be humble from the marine perspective. We still know very little about the Southern Ocean, how it will cope with the major changes that we're facing. There's a huge background in terms of biology that actually makes the Southern Ocean quite changeable. We've been whaling, we had a huge impact, human impact for the last 200 years in terms of whaling, and it's something that, that sense of equilibrium of the Southern Ocean can be quite problematic. But we're doing a huge advances most recently. But it's just to tell you that from a marine perspective, we have to be conservative. But if we want answers, there's three major points that I want to make today. First is that the changes that we expect in the future, and Steve actually mentioned them, and I'm quite happy he introduced this theme, is that from a marine perspective, we will see major effects in terms of environmental change and ocean acidification. Actually, what we expect, and actually we're writing those papers now, Julian, Andrew Constable, and so on, there's a group of people from this community that's writing this vision, what might happen in the coming future. And we know there will be major effects from the coastal areas to the benthic areas to the deep sea. There will be major effects as has been predicted. So what I can tell you, and this is how much we still need to know, is that even the same species might behave differently to climate change or ocean acidification in different parts of Antarctica. So we have a major problem in this. So we can't really generalize for all the species. Secondly, there are still major gaps, even on the models that we're trying to create in terms of food webs. For example, particularly the middle parts, we have a reasonable, or trying to understand a little bit what happens in the low trophic levels, like algae, krill, and so on, but still a lot of things to know, a lot on the top predators. But for example, squid. I was just doing a review on squid, and if you go there with a research vessel, you catch 4 or 5 species. If you use a top predator, we're talking about 40 or 50 species. And we don't need to handle the predator, but this is just to say to you, if you really to understand the Southern Ocean ecosystems, probably you have a major vehicle that still today, and probably in 2065, would be a major source of information. Just to tell that today, this review I'm doing, we have species that is called still species F. And the major crucial link between the deep sea and the surface, and a major link on the mid-water food webs. So we still don't know nothing about it. Finally, there's from the impacts of ice, we do expect that top predators, particularly ice-related, for example, top predators like penguins, the emperors, the Adelis chin straps, we have evidence they will be affected in the future. Ocean acidification will be a major problem, and we already some evidence on that from theropods, phytoplankton, krill just came out, and also the squid. But one thing I should note that for benthos, ocean acidification actually will be the most likeliest, most important change in the habitat in the next century. So yeah, again, it's something that probably most of you already know, especially because you've been here for the last 2 days. But we can't generalize. There are some species that will be able to adapt, it's true, but we really need to know which ones and how actually the food web will change. And that comes back to my second point on this conversation, is that if there's a growth, world growth population, what will be the impact on the marine resources if we're talking about marine life? And I think we need to be one step ahead. Technology won't be a problem. We'll be able to catch by anything we want by 2065. So we have to predict, working with these major organizations that we have by our side today, and we can predict, for example, myctophid fish, squid for sure as a potential, and silverfish will be most likely as the species that will be commercialized along that the krill and other major species, probably by then. But we have to be one step ahead and trying to look at the future, but this is kind of obvious, so we'll look soon to ocean resources. But we need to protect them. Marine protected areas, I think, will be in the hot topic still by then. Hopefully we'll be already sorted out, but we never know. But one thing that has to be stressed is that if you want to have major answers for major questions, monitoring will be a key issue. We really need to know how the oceanography works to really understand the long term to predict what will come in the future. So we have to be very, very cautious about that. Finally, my third point is on the education and outreach. The perception that how we look at education in 2065 will be very different. But enigmatic animals like penguins, seals, or a scientist doing geology in the field will be as interesting. People will want to share their knowledge with you, and the interest will maintain. But we have to have that in mind, like Marta did in her vision many years ago. There will be major challenges in the future. Marine protected areas will definitely be an issue. We have to be cautious, for example, on the amount of research bases on the coastal areas, the human impact that we already have all over the world, but in terms of land use base change, pollution, exploitation, invasions. But one thing that's very crucial that I find is very important is in terms of the cultural differences between all of us. The way we solve problems, and we've been an example in the last 2 days, the way we express our ideas has been an example worldwide, where we come from very different countries, but we're able to get an agreement. So congratulations for that. Just to finish it off, I think today we're an example of international multidisciplinary research group that under a strong treaty in the future, we can be in a better planet in 2065.
What a great place to wrap as the floor manager.
Kia ora, thank you.